Chapter 1. When Packy woke up on the morning of August the 9th, 2016, he did not know yet that it would be a very special day. He had been away for a week, and like every summer for about 20 years, he went on holiday to Formia, a beautiful tourist resort in the province of Latina. With his wife and his 3 children, he usually went to the beach after midday. They always went to the Via Reggio Lido, located in the beautiful bay of Serappo in Gaeta. Serappo's beach is the main beach of the town, consisting of fine and clear sand, a half-kilometre long. It is closed to the south by Monte Orlando and the shrine of the Spicata mountain, and to the north by another slightly lower promontory. This position makes water particularly clear in this area. From the beach, it is also possible to admire a special boat-shaped rock called Ship of Serappo, rich in marine fauna and flora. That morning, however, Packy decided to do otherwise. In fact, he, who was a little old man, was tired of waiting for the family to get ready to go to the beach. At 8 o'clock he went up to his Vespa 50, and he headed alone to Gaeta. He stopped at the Basanti bar, a characteristic bar full of tourists in the summer. He sat at a table in the outside veranda of the restaurant, and he ordered a croissant and a cappuccino. After making his order, he pulled out the red Marlboro package of Frenzy from his pocket, and he began to enjoy his first morning cigar. He was a respectable smoker. 10 years earlier, he had stopped completely, because one night he had woken with a pain in his chest. He thought it was a very bad cold, but his wise and prudent wife did everything to bring him to first-aid attention. Packy did not want to go, but his wife insisted, so he promised he would go to bed immediately after smoking another cigarette, aware that he couldn't smoke in hospital for several days. Doctors diagnosed him with a serious heart condition, and he had to undergo major heart surgery. It was a miracle that he was still alive. That was why he stopped smoking. He hadn't touched a cigarette for more than 6 years, but then, as stubborn as he was, he resumed this bad habit. He had just put out the cigarette when his attention was drawn by a female figure heading toward a coffee table. She was a middle-aged woman, still pleasing to the eye. She was wearing a pair of jean shorts that let glimpse all the beauty of her tanned legs, while wearing a striped blouse that left her beautiful and prosperous breast clear. On her feet she wore espadrilles, a backpack on her shoulders, and in her right hand a beach bag. Packy, curious, watched the scene for a few minutes, while she was staggering because of all the weight she was carrying. He watched the woman arrive at the table. He saw that she had moved to sit down, and almost exhausted, she rested on the back. On the right she put her backpack, and on her left-hand side her beach bag. Then she turned to the side of the table and sat down. At that moment the chair behind her slipped with too much weight of the bags and fell away. Packy yelled, "Careful!" Too late! The beautiful lady was already lying on the floor. Packy in a moment reached her and helped her get up. The woman was very amazed by the gallant gesture of Packy, and, to return his favour, she invited him to sit at the table. Packy gladly accepted the invitation, as the beautiful lady, besides charming, proved to be very fond of joking about the incident. The woman said her name was Sabrina, and she came from Rome. Then she added, "I've seen on the Caboto seafront some stalls. Is it an antique market?" "Perhaps," replied Packy. "They did the antique trade market, of real antique trade, about 20 years ago. Not on the Caboto seafront, but on a small street behind the sanctuary of the Most Holy Virgin Mary. It is right here, behind where is also the chapel of the Immaculate Conception. The Golden Cave, where on the 8th of December 1854, Pope Pie IX had the idea of proclaiming the homogeneous dogma. Then it was nice to walk down that little street, where you could really find so many beautiful things. Today, however, you find only crafts and jewellery of various kinds, which is why I have not stopped for several years. I prefer other markets. Sabrina looked fascinated. She looked at him with her wide open eyes and a smile printed on her face. It was clear to see that Packy liked Sabrina. And also, Packy, despite his advanced age, was still an attractive man, with his dense hair, wide shoulders, well-defined pectorals, and grey hair down on his chest. Packy noticed the situation, and as he stared at her eyes, he slowly began to pull the wedding ring off his finger, rested it on the table, and began to play. He span it twice, watching the light that emanated, then picking it back up, replaced it on his finger. He usually used this toy as a pastime, but at the moment with its insignificant gesture, he wanted to make Sabrina understand that he was married and never betrayed his wife. In fact, Sabrina for a moment lowered her eyes and changed her expression. But a second later, she was happy and smiling again, as if nothing had happened. The conversation continued pleasantly for another 20 minutes, full of amazement-like looks and bright smiles from her. Packy realised that this simple encounter could have turned into something more than a mere friendship, and to avoid the risk of temptation, he looked at the clock and exclaimed, "It is late! Sorry, Sabrina, but I just have to go away." They parted, both happy to have had a wonderful encounter caused by an unfortunate incident. Packy climbed on the Vespa 50 and headed for Via Reggio for the usual day on the sea. During the journey he still felt his heart beat forever, a beating that revealed the strong emotion Packy had suffered from the charm of Sabrina. Had he fallen in love? No, but in any case he had been disturbed. He was thinking of her green eyes from hazel-like edges that had literally flickered him. Women with green eyes are generally considered to be very fascinating, but Sabrina's eyes were something indescribable. Suddenly he remembered a legend he had heard at the school. The legend of the nymphs. It is said that people with green eyes descend from the nymphs of the lakes. The nymphs were very beautiful female deities, and they were the object of every man's desire, enough to look in her eyes, and the same happened with Sabrina. It was so intense that he felt he needed to stop and drink a sip of water.